Hey everyone, hope you are doing awesome. Welcome back to my channel PEGAhut with another video. Thanks everyone for subscribing to my channel, and if you haven't hit the bell icon yet, please do so you won't miss any of my videos. Please hit the like button and leave me a comment or feedback if you like the video or the way I have explained. Today we are going to learn a new concept which is JSON data transform, and we are also going to talk about serialize and deserialize, and we are going to do some hands-on and do some practical how you gonna use that serialize and deserialize while using the JSON data transform. So if you see, while creating a data transform, you'll have two options. One is clipboard, another one is JSON. Now when you're gonna use the clipboard is when you are transforming the data from one clipboard structure to another one. So what I did is I've created a playlist for you guys, data transform basic to advanced. If you haven't already seen that, please visit that and watch all the videos so you'll be a pro in this. So I've covered all aspects of the clipboard data transform. In today's video, we are going to learn transforming the data from JSON to clipboard and how you're going to transfer the data from clipboard to JSON. So you will end up in many situations where you are going to have a JSON and you are going to convert that JSON back to clipboard, or you will end up in a situation in your project where you are going to convert the clipboard to JSON and then send it to the external party. Now there is something called execution mode, which we are going to talk more about it in this video, and those execution mode is either you are going to pass as deserialize or you are going to pass serialize. Now when you are going to pass deserialize, when you are converting from JSON to clipboard. When you are converting from clipboard to JSON, during that time you are going to pass the execution mode as serialize. Now let's talk about more about how it actually looks. So as I told, when you're gonna use serialize, when you are converting a clipboard structure to JSON, right? And when you're gonna use the deserialize, when you are going to convert a JSON to clipboard structure. Now when you create a data transform, this is how you're gonna choose. So first you obviously gonna give a name in the label, and then instead of clipboard you are going to choose JSON. Soon after you create, in the data transform, in the parameter page there will be two in the parameter tab there will be two parameters which by default will be there. One is JSON data, another one is execution mode. Now when your execution mode, basically you can set this execution mode either to serialize or deserialize. As you could see in the description, direction to execute the mapping in serialize or deserialize. So basically what you are going to do is you are going to set in a param before calling this data transform, and while calling this data transform, pass this parameter. Now in the JSON data, what you are going to do is you are going to set the param.json data only when it is deserialized. Why? Because you are going to convert that JSON to clipboard structure. However, when it is serialized, right, what you are doing, you are going to convert the clipboard structure to JSON data, right? So during that time you do not have a JSON data, so you don't need to. Now how you gonna do it? It will be in the output of this after executing this data transform. So what you need to do is, once it converts, after executing this data transform, you can see in tracer that param.json data will have the newly converted JSON, and you can make use of that for your process. So that's all about it. Now without doing any further delay, let's get into the practical mode and try to do some hands-on. Alright, now let's start some practical things. Now before I start executing and showing you guys how you're gonna do that, what I did is I just created a couple of things. So I'm gonna show you here. So this is the object, this is the page that I have created. So address details JSON, as you could see, this is a page, single page. And what I have done is I have given a definition which I had already this class. So if you open that class, you'll have this four property: address, address type, customer ID, and serial number. So what you can do is you can create a data class, or you can use any existing data type that you have in your data class, and then create this property. So if I take you to this data class, you can find those property, right?
Now you guys go ahead and create those properties, and after those creating that property, create a any single page, and then refer that property. So this page will be in your work class. So that's first step that I did. Now I know this 4 property, and what I have done is I've just created a activity wherein we're gonna execute that, so that you will see. Now this activity is going to be in the work class where my property is sitting. Okay, so these are the things. Now the first step, let's first try to call a apply data transform. Okay, now in apply data transform, let's call this as a JSON DT, or yeah, learn JSON DT. Okay, learn JSON DT. Okay, now here I'm just going to select the pass parameter, and I'm going to create one. Now when you create one, now you got option of clipboard or JSON. Here we are going to choose JSON, right? That's what our requirement is. Now when I do, this is how it's going to look like. Now I'm going to explain you everything. Now this is the definition where you have this first section, which if you choose auto map all data, what Pega will do, whatever JSON you are going to pass, obviously you want to pass as deserialize, it's going to auto map everything depending on the scenario. Now here obviously there are instances where you don't want the auto map. You would only do if your structure is same as the JSON structure. Now I will show you in a while. My structure is different than the JSON structure, so I'm not gonna do, but yeah, this is what the concept of this auto map. Now you got two options, object and array. Now this is telling you what is your root object, whether it's a means in my case my root object is address detail JSON, right? So it is an object, it's not an array. If you want to have an array, then you can choose the array. So what you can do is, for learning all this item, right, you can go to help, and you will have clearly it is explaining it. You will see it has explained clearly on when you need to change choose, when you not. Now in this section where you got couple of action set, one is set, which is our normal set. From on right side you will have JSON, left side you will have clipboard, and you got auto map. Again, it is going to automatically map. Now update page is update page, wherein you can use a page property. Append and map to is wherein you can use a page list property, and you can call another data transform in this JSON data transform. So if you know that you might have complex JSON structure, right? And sometimes it so happen that you don't want to end up putting everything in one JSON, so you might need to create small JSON DT, so that it will be easy to maintain. So during that time, let's say you got another complex structure where you wanted to create a separate data transform just to avoid any ambiguity, right? So during that time you can create another one and refer that data transform by using apply data transform, and comment is to give more value on what step you are writing. In the parameter page, I have just explained you before in my PPT presentation, where you got two parameters, which is default. Now moving to the setting tab. Now if you go to setting tab, you'll have enable multi-dimensional array output. So multi-dimensional array output, I mean, as the name indicate, it will have multi-dimension. So one array underneath another array. So if you want to enable that while passing, you can do that. You can go to the help, and Pega has given a nice example. You can feel free to see that on how what is the difference between a single dimensional array and a multi-dimensional array. Now there are two date format that you can do as part of serialization. One is Pega API, another one is Pega internal API. So when you choose, I've just noted down. So when you choose Pega API, so the date format will be like this, and the date time will be like this, and the time of the day will be like this. That's how automatically Pega will convert and give it to you. Now when you choose Pega internal, then Pega internal, as you could see in clipboard, you would always see YYYY MMDD, right? So that's how Pega going to pass. And if as you know, date time Pega always store in GMT format, right? So that's what you're gonna see, and time of the day will be like this. So it just whatever format that you would like to see, you can always choose that format. So similarly, you can depending on the requirement, you can do that. If you do not have a date, you don't need to worry. Now page and class, if you have to define any page, and test case and specification history are the same like any other data transform, right? Okay. Now coming back to the definition tab, right? So what we're gonna do is first I'll probably pause it here, and I'm gonna go back to my activity, right? Now here, as you know that first we are going to learn about deserialization, where I'm going to convert a JSON object to a clipboard structure. Now what I've done is I've got two JSON format. So as you could see, this JSON format, it's a flat format, wherein it's like in Pega how you can have four field, right? Or just on four field: address, address type, customer ID, and serial number, straight in the work class, right? How you got like total amount, total payment. It's not a page or page, it's just a single element, right? It's exactly the same, right? JSON format where you got address, address type, customer ID, and serial number. Now what I'm going to do is first I'll store this in a JSON param.json. So obviously when I'm going to if you would see here the data transform, right? Here the JSON and execution mode, the both are string. So I need to store that string in a JSON format. So to do that, what I'll do is first I'll insert above. Here what I'm going to do is I'll do a property set. Okay. So in property set, I'm going to say that param.json. Let me copy this one. Param.json data. Here I'm going to, I've just formatted it. So what I have done is, so as you could see, there will be this double quote, right? If you put, obviously double quote means string. Now if I wanted to skip this double quote character as part of string, then I need to put an additional backward slash. That's how you're gonna skip it, so that this entire thing will consider as a string, right? So I'm going to save this. I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to put it over here. Now here the second thing is I'm going to pass this execution mode, which I call as param.execution mode. Here I'm going to pass deserialize. So let me copy just to avoid any typo error. So I'm going to pass deserialize. Now I'll save it here. Now we have finished setting up the activity where we are passing the JSON data, we are passing the execution mode, and we are calling this data transform. Now let's try to set up this data transform. Now here, if you remember, my address details JSON is a single page, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose here update page because it's single page. Now my property is going to be address details JSON. This is where I need to map the JSON structure. Now here I'm going to set all the property. For example, oh sorry, this open. Okay, for example, the address is there, then I'll put address type, then I'll put customer ID, then I'll put serial number. Now if you see my JSON structure, I've kept the name as is, but in your case, right, if the names are not same, then you can just copy and paste it in the structure. So I'm going to copy and paste it here. So here there won't be any dot, nothing, because what we are going to tell Pega is that I have a JSON which is coming in my parameter. Here it is a flat structure, right? I'm just going to give the name of the field. So here if you see the way you read JSON is this is the field name, this is the value, this is the field name, this is the value, right? That's how you're gonna read the JSON. So you are just going to tell that, okay, put the value which is there in address in my address property. Similarly, put the value which is there in address type in my address type property. Same for customer ID and serial number. So I'm going to do that same thing. Now here, in some cases, depending on your need, default value is whatever you are going to have the JSON. If at all your JSON is null, right? I mean, so if you want to have this field, if it is empty, then you can set it to null, or you can just skip the mapping if it is empty. So you don't need to even do that. So there are multiple ways you can choose the empty behavior. Here I'm gonna go with the default value as it's not a concern of my for my video. So now I have saved it. Now let's go ahead and run this activity and try to understand how this data has been mapped. Now I trace that activity and I'm going to run it now. Now the moment I click on run, right, so what happened is, obviously it will run in a temporary thread. So as you could see, this is where my activity started. In the property set of step 1, right, if you see, in the property set, what parameter that we have got, my parameter is JSON data, whatever I have given, and execution mode is deserialize, right? As per I have set, right? Now this is where if you see there are some declare expression will trigger in the background wherein Pega would try to map those fields, right? Now I got 4 mapping. So Pega will try to map those fields. So if you see here, now py property value is address and py property name is dot address. So basically it takes that value and put it in the property. Similarly, it does for all the field that you have given. And here it maintain a page reference because I have given this as a page, so it maintains that page reference. So Pega creates this declare expression internally, and then when my data transform ends, right? So if I click on this data transform, if you could see, my address detail JSON has got all the data that I have just passed: home 123, home, and 1. 1 second. Address should be 8. XYZ some example, just give me a moment. Oh yeah, okay, so I've just like I haven't placed it, so because my address is home, that's why it was home. So what I'm gonna do is I'll change it and do a quick test and show you guys. So here I'm gonna go and update this string. I'll save it and I'm gonna run now, and now you're gonna see the latest value. So I'll clear it up and I'm gonna run it again. All right, now I'll on the tracer. Now the moment the data transform is finished, so you could see the address is this one, customer ID home 1. So now what we did is we learned about deserialize, wherein I have converted a JSON to clipboard structure, right? Now what we are going to do is we are going to do in a different way. We are going to convert a clipboard structure into JSON. So to do that clipboard structure into JSON, what we should do is in the property set, right? Let the here there is no point of having param.json because we are going to convert a JSON, and this param.json data is going to be my output of my data transform. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to set this execution mode as serialize. Okay. Now here what I'm going to do is let me set some property, right? The same address detail.json and dot address. Similarly, let me set all the property. Okay, address type, customer ID, and serial number. Now here serial number I'll say 1 2 3 4, and customer ID I'll say CUS 1 2 3 4, CUS 1 2 3 4, and then let's say address type I would say home or business. All right, and this address I'll say XYG road, something like that. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to show you here, in my first property set, what will happen is I'm going to set this object, the page, some values, right? These values, and then as part of my data transform, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert that page structure to a JSON structure, and the output will be in the JSON format. Now here what I need to do is okay, I'll save this one, and I will also do a action and sorry, I think it's already there, so I'm going to just execute that. So I'll just create this for you and I'm going to execute the other run. Right now here what will happen, if you see here, this is where my property set started and this is where my data transform being end. Right now when my property set started, I'll just quickly see here in my this particular page what I have got 1 second, address type, value non-prompted business. Oh, okay, got it, because in the background it has got a I have put a prompted value, but that doesn't matter, so we're gonna go ahead with this one. So if you see in the at this point what happened is I've got address and customer ID and serial number, right? All this value whatever I have set. Now if I go and click see at the end of this apply data transform, so obviously this is primary step page, right? And what I told, when you do serialize, that means you are converting from a clipboard structure to JSON. That means your response JSON structure will be part of your parameter. So you need to click on this step method, and here you go to unnamed parameter. Now if you could see, Pega has auto converted this address XYZ automatically. So this is the same value or same JSON which you have provided. Means obviously the values would be different, but if you see, the structure is going to be same. Now because it's a string, obviously you don't have that additional escape character. So Pega has given you this JSON, and you can make use of this JSON in your process. Now you must be thinking on why would I need that, right? Now before I tell you that, when you need what is the real-time scenario that you can make use of it, I'm going to tell you another example where your sometimes your JSON structure might not be so flat, right? Sometimes your JSON structure is like how we have got page list, page or page list. Your JSON structure can also have this kind of request body or request object, which we call request page, and then you can have the parameter. During that time, what you need to do is, all you need to do is mention this request, because it's so if you see this address type, customer ID and serial number, you need to mention this request as part of this particular JSON DT on top. So Pega will read that as part of request.address, request.address type, request.customer ID and request.serial number. Now let me run and show you guys. So if I just run the same instance, so yeah, my tracer is on. So if I just quickly run this one, so if you see it's success. Now if I go to apply data transform and get this JSON, see, if you could see, now I got a request object also. So if I just go ahead and place that in my JSON, and if let me format that, shift M, yeah. So as you could see, because I put this request object, is going to be exactly my below structure, whatever I have got here. So Pega automatically converts into this structure and give it back to you. Similarly, let's say if I have this structure and I'm going to deserialize, I'm going to copy this one, okay, and I'm going to go to this JSON DT, and I'm going to delete everything. Here I'm going to put param.json, let me copy that part. So learn here parameter JSON data, okay, param.json data, and I'll save it. Now if I run, so what will happen is Pega will read this JSON object, because here I'm going to do, okay, let me change to deserialize. Because I'm going to deserialize, Pega will read this JSON, and Pega will read, I will get to know this is my object, this is the property, this is the value that I need to set. Automatically it will map this value to my address details.json. Now if I just go ahead and clear them up and run that again, so you could see because this is deserialization, so you could see that this property is been read from request.address, request.customer ID, request.address type and serial number. So if I just go ahead here in the property set, in the parameter page, you could see the JSON data has got an additional request object. So this is how you're gonna read the flat. I wanted to show you guys both structure, the flat one versus the object one. So this is why I have made this one. Now coming back to the question of when you're gonna need this.
Generally, what scenario that you would need the serialization is, let's say in an example where you are connecting from your Pega to an API, and API failed and you wanted to reconnect that at a later point of time. So obviously you need to wait, right? So during that time you need to store the request which you already have worked on it. So what you can do during that time is you convert that entire request which you would have sent as part of API request, and then store it as a JSON in a data table. And later point of time, by configuring an agent, you can pick that request instead of constructing everything from scratch by opening the py work object, locking them, which can cause other issues, right? So during that time you can use this serialization concept. Now coming back to deserialization, when you can do is, if you would have seen my service REST video, wherein I have passed a JSON to service REST, and service REST convert that JSON automatically as part of my service REST role, right? During that time, it can only be possible if your objects are matching from the JSON to your
object that you have created in the int there. But in an instance where it doesn't match, that means you need to get that in a parameter and then deserialize and map to the respective property that you would have planned. So I'm going to show the service list which we have created in my last video, and now I'm going to show how you can do deserialize and pass them on. So if you guys have already seen my service rest post video, then you would already know. If not, then I'm gonna give you guys a link in the description, so feel free to go and see how I have constructed. So what I have done is we have created a post service rest, and here we are going to map the input JSON to, I have mapped to a request object, right? Now in the postman, what like if you use a set of request, and if you are going to create send a request, then what I will do is in the background I'm going to create an employee ID and going to create this record in my local data storage and giving back the employee ID back to the consumer. So this is what I have done right now. How let's consider now this request. I have got this request object. That's the reason why you could be able to directly map this request object, right? Now if I go back to my int there in the data model, I have got this request object already. So that's why when I get this JSON, when I get this input JSON, I could able to directly map. But in a scenario, if your structure is going to be different, right? Obviously you cannot do a direct map during that time. Or you, let's say if you don't want to create this request object, right, you can reuse this some of the properties which you might have created before. Then you do not need to have this direct map. So what you can do during that time is you are going to method, and in the post method here, instead of JSON, what you're going to do is you are going to choose clipboard, and instead of just request, right, let's say we'll call param.json request. Okay, JSON request. Now whatever value you are going to get from the consumer is going whatever the structure you are going to get from consumer is this structure, right? As you already would have signed the contract saying that okay, this is what the structure I would expect from you. So the moment consumer will send you this structure, you are going to set that into a JSON request. Now as part of this post, right, what we do is we call an activity. Now here I'm checking the mandatory parameter where I'm checking the clipboard page. Now before checking, this is where you need to set this value. So first step what we are going to do is we are going to do a property set, and second step we are going to apply the data transform. That apply data transform is nothing but going to convert that JSON to the clipboard structure. My clipboard structure means this structure, right, my request object. Now as this is sitting in the int there, my if I wanted to make use of this property, that means I need to create a data transform in my int there. So let's first create this data transform, or let's do one thing. Let's first let's go ahead and create the data transform. Now convert the input request. Okay, just name it. Let's create the data transform, and as it is in the int there, I'm going to create that in int there. Here I'm going to choose JSON, and I'm going to create and open. Now in this particular section, what I'm going to do is, as you already know, I'm going to use request, and in set what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the age. Okay, and I'm going to set the employee ID I don't need to set because I'm going to create that name, and I'm going to set the salary. As I know that my structures are same, so I'm going to just copy age, copy name, and this is what the structure I'm getting in from JSON, right? If you see this one, age, name, salary. So I'm going to copy the same thing, and here I'm going to save this one, and in the parameter page I'll copy this JSON, and here I'm going to set param.json, right? Here, where is my JSON? So earlier, if you would have seen, what did I do? I have actually pasted over here, right? Now my JSON is actually getting mapped to this particular parameter. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to set it over here, and I'm going to you can directly also have this one also, but I just wanted to see how this data transform happening. Now here I'm going to copy execution mode to param.execution mode. Now I'll just say param.execution mode, and I'm going to say deserialize. Now if you see here, deserialize, right? Now I'll just pass the current parameter so that it will pass, and I'll save it. Now if I trace this one, you would see the magic happening. So if I just trace this one, okay, if I hit now here, so what will happen is, I got the response here. Now if you see here, so this is where my create employee. Here in my first property set, I would have set this property. As you could see, when I send this request in the service REST, I have told to map it to JSON request, which has been mapped, and that JSON request mapped to JSON data, and service execution mode is deserialize. Now I have got that data. By the time I finish my data transform, if you click on the temp page, you would see the request will already have the structure, because it converted from JSON to now request object, and eventually it does what it needs to do. So if I don't pass any of the mandatory elements, so let's say if I don't pass any of the mandatory element, I'm going to get a 400. Okay, this JSON is wrong. So I'm going to get a 400 now, because I haven't passed the mandatory element, right? So this is how you can make use of deserialize concept in your process as part of your service REST.
That's it for today, and hope you understood clearly. Please hit the like button if you learned something or you like the way I have explained, and leave me a comment if you have any queries or feedback for me. It will help me to improve and also motivate me to post more concepts and videos. As I always tell, sharing is caring, so do share with others so people who do not know about my channel will be benefited. Stay tuned for my next video, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do subscribe and click on the bell notification for my new video updates. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.